Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be tying Landon Mayer's tube midge. This is a super cool design. I believe the idea came to him while he was teaching a class, and they were sailing the river, and a lot of the midges they were finding that day had kind of a translucent coating around them. They were still segmented, but they had a real translucency to them, and there weren't really any midge imitations on the market at the time that mimicked this. So he went back and found a solution for it using micro tubing and some small UTC wires. So, really great idea. Super successful everywhere. I like to fish it, particularly along the Dream Stream, which are his home waters and where he guides with this fly. So, yeah, let's get into it. For a hook, I'm using a TMCO 2488H in a size 20. And paired with that, I just have a tungsten gunmetal bead. Something to note is that the bead is not necessary. It's commercially tied with the bead, but the first version he tied had sort of a gill tuft coming out the front, similar to what you see with the Rojo midge. And I believe he still fishes it with that, and it's a cool little pattern to fish right in the substrate. Right below the surface film, because it does have a little bit of weight from that wire. But that little puff, whatever you put there, is gonna keep it up. I like to use CDC for that. You can use egg yarn or what's that stuff called? Like the egg yarn that you use for a nuclear egg. You can use a whole bunch of stuff. Antron yarn, whatever you want. But keep in mind that that's a great way to tie it as well. Or you can tie it just without the bead and no tuft as well. So yeah, let's get into it. We are using some iron gray, some A-dot uni thread in iron gray. You can use it in black as well. Doesn't really matter, but we're not going to use that right away. We are going to first use our tubing and wire to make the body. So that's another characteristic of this fly is that it's basically indestructible because there's not a lot of thread on it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take some small black wire and some hairline micro tubing. Make sure not to get midge tubing. It's actually bigger, and micro tubing is the only kind applicable to this fly. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your wire and your tubing, and you're going to try to insert the wire into the little hole found at the end of the tubing. So I got first try. That's not usually what happens, but once you get it, you're going to want to try to push it all the way as far as you can. And once you do that, you're going to start twisting your fingers along the wire, trying to feed that tubing farther up. Usually I can get about 2 or 3 inches of like micro tubing with the wire inserted before it kind of there's too much friction within the tubing for it to keep on feeding up. But so I think right there looks about as good as I'm gonna get. So you can see I've got a nice little running section of wire there. So what you're gonna do is you've got a whole bunch of extra micro tubing hanging off the back here. So you'll see right there that that black wire ends. You're just gonna cut off any extra tubing within the wire. Then what you can do is you're gonna have all this wire running out the end. You don't want too much, but you're gonna want, an inch or two, so that you can tie this down onto your hook shank. So what we're gonna do is throughout this whole process, you're gonna want to pinch that joining right there. You're gonna want to pinch it super tight so that micro tubing isn't sliding around. So you're going to take a few wraps of wire on the shank of your tube midge. They don't need to be very neat because you can slide them around afterwards. You're just trying to get a nice basis down. Trying to make sure that tubing doesn't slip. So once you get a few wraps down, you can pull and make sure that everything's looking good. It's nice and even. Now once you do this, you can start wrapping your tubing up, not adding a whole lot of pressure, because if you do that, tubing will start slipping down the wire. So just take a few loose wraps until you get a nice, a couple wraps on there to where that tubing isn't going to start slipping out again. Then what you can do is you can take your fingernail, take a couple more wraps as you go down, and start sweeping that wire down. And before you get to the bottom there, you're going to want to pull on that tubing so that it kind of sits more flush down towards the shank. Then you can just start wrapping this tubing freely. Sometimes this wire back here will start rotating, so you're going to want to hold that black wire coming off the back too. So just start wrapping up all the way towards the eye. So as you can see now, we've got a nice body. Also, usually I end up with a few too many wraps around the back here, just because when you're securing that down, that micro tubing likes to slip. So if that happens to you, just unwrap a few, and then you can take your fingernail once again and kind of slide all that down and take another wrap or two. So now you still want to leave a few wraps here because that's what's going to hold that micro tubing on there. So once you do that, you can helicopter that black wire off the back here. Let me see. It does not want to budge. I left it too short. Dang it. Let me grab. Ooh, there it goes. Okay. Make sure to leave more length on that wire than I did so that you can actually break it off. So now we can grab our thread. And you're going to want to tie in your thread right behind the bead, not on top of that tubing, just right in front of it. And clip the tag. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to come right behind that tubing. And I like to actually bring my thread kind of in front of the bead, so I pin it onto the bead. Then I like to do that one more time, and then go in front of it. And one thing about this fly is that you can't break that wire because it's inside the tubing, so you have to cut it with your scissors. Pretty much the only downside to this fly is that you have to cut the wire with your scissors, which always sucks, but other than that, it's damn near perfect. So then you'll have a little butt of that wire right there, your little tag end. So then you're just going to want to take wraps, trying to cover that up, and create a little bit of a thread head going up towards it. And once you feel like you're getting a nice little thread head going, you can grab your whip finisher and whip finish. And because this fly is so durable in its body, I like to do a couple whip finishes, building up that thread head some more. And then just run your scissors along the thread. And that is Landon Mayer's Tube Midge. A really great pattern. Mess around with the wire, the colors, because, you know, you can do greens in larger sizes. I know he fishes it as a caddis pupa sometimes with green wire inserted in larger sizes. You can also, a color that a lot of people don't think about is blues or purples within this fly, especially with that tungsten bead. If you insert like gunmetal or purple wire and get that fly down, they'll be able to see it. I mean, blue and purple are the last colors you lose when you go deep within the water column, so it's a really great fly for that kind of stuff. I know it's commercially tied, I think, in black, red, and copper, so those are great patterns. I mean, great color patterns as well, but yeah, that is Landon Mayer's Tube Midge. Great fly. I want to thank you guys for watching, and hope we have tight lines on the water this winter. Thanks.